Hi guys, today I'm just answering, well, two questions really. One of my readers, Fazal, hope I'm pronouncing that right, wrote in to me and just said that you'd had a look on one of my posts and you were confused when I've mentioned about this correlation between the zoom and the shutter speed, and I'm telling you that you should, at 200th on a zoom, that you should be over 200 on your shutter speed. And thank you so much for being honest and explaining that you didn't understand it. Around here we believe there's no such thing as a silly question, and actually you asking that question, there's 10, or I guess in the internet terms there's probably 100 if not 1,000 people that are asking the same thing but just wouldn't be bothered to put it in a post. So thank you for coming back to me. I did say I'd try and get back to you this weekend, and here we are. So firstly, let me cover the query to do with, it's really a rule, a bit of a guide for you. So let me give you an example. Last week we were on holiday and my children are playing in the pool. And I was using this lens, which can go from 28 to 300 mil. So my 300 mil, I'm really zoomed in on my kids. And what I was saying in this previous post, and the link will be below here, was that if I'm at 300 mil zoom, then my shutter speed needs to be higher than 300 mil. And I don't understand the science behind it, I'll be perfectly honest with you, but it's a guide that works. So if I'm shooting at 300 mil, then I need to be on, say, 3/20th. Now, if I was setting a shutter priority or manual, then I can do this in advance. But if I'm on in the green zone, if we're on automatic and you really don't know what the camera's doing for you, you need to just review and check that you are higher than 300 on your 300 mil zoom. Now, if you're also on an aperture priority, it might be that you've set it to f8 or something like that, but the camera is then determining in the shutter speed and it doesn't know what zoom you're at, or it's not going to query that for you. So you've got to just keep an eye on that and make sure that your shutter, so I would suggest do a shutter priority anyway. So if you're on a Canon, it would be TV. And then depending on the distance I've got on here, so I'm shooting out at 300 mil, then I'm going to set this, so say 300, or to be honest, 500. Now this is all talking about handheld, not talking about tripods here. This is me standing taking photos of my kids. Now I tend to, again, I've put other posts, get yourself into a nice little position here so you can hold that thing fairly still. But I need to set that shutter speed higher than the number. It's just a little guide to keep with you. You don't need to go back to a book or check what your settings are. So if I come down to 200 mil, my shutter speed has to be above 200th of a second. So I'd set my shutter to 1/200 or 250. This is a minimum. I would suggest you go much higher than this. And if you're doing shots of children playing, things like that, then really you want to be on 500 plus anyway. If I come down to say 28 on this one, or let's go to 50 mil, then I can bring that down to a 50th of a second, and handheld I should be able to keep that still. Now you would know yourself just looking through the zoom, if I'm on a nice wide angle shot here, everything seems to stay a lot stiller. If I zoom in, you can just see yourself that the thing looks to be wobbling around. So it makes sense that the further the zoom, the higher that shutter speed needs to be to stop any blurring. So that's the point really that's going on here. Where the query comes in, and this is what we're going to cover in the second video, is what we do with the crop factor. Because actually on a typical camera, not a pro camera, this is a full frame one, but you won't have a full frame one, I'm guessing. We have a crop factor that comes in. So tune into the next video and I'll explain to you about the crop factor and how that throws this thing out even more. But there it is, that's the guide. It's hopefully explained it a little bit better. It's just there as a guide when you're trying to determine what shutter speed you should be at with a handheld mode like this. Then you can look on your lens, and depending on what that zoom is giving you, if you're at 200 mil, just be thinking, right, is my shutter speed higher than 200, else I'm going to get home and I'm going to have blurred shots. So I would recommend to you, if you're shooting on a zoom, you ought to be on shutter priority anyway. put it on shutter priority, set that way higher, and hopefully your aperture will balance. If you're struggling to get a good aperture, if it's telling you it can't cope with it, then push your ISO up. Certainly outside, you can go quite way up with your ISO. 800 plus on your ISO should be fine in daylight outside. So give that a go. Hopefully that helps, and please again comment and come back to me and tell me if this made no sense at all. I can have a go at it again, but hopefully it has.